Welcome to the Glitter Boom Girls podcast. I'm Robbie-Ann McPherson over on the East Coast.
And I'm Amy Asbury on the West Coast.
We are so thrilled to have you here with us today. We're just two author gals talking about nostalgia. I'm a child of the 70s. Amy's a child of the 80s. So, we each have our areas of expertise. Today, we are dipping into 70s decor and all that implies.
And I think that it applies to both of us because my home in the 80s was still 70s. It still looks like the 70s. And I imagine many of us 80s kids have had not only the 70s decor in our homes, but also at our grandparents' houses that stayed kind of like a museum.
Yes.
From the last time they updated.
Yes. In fact, I will be posting on our Instagram a picture of the wallpaper in my grandmother's entryway.
Ooh, so what did it look like?
We uncovered this wallpaper. Mm-hmm. My mom now lives in the house, and we uncovered this wallpaper when we were looking to paint the hallway. So as we're peeling things off, and I remember when Gramma had this, it actually resembles the Three's Company kitchen wallpaper.
Okay, remind us of what that looks like.
Yeah, okay. It's like an orange and yellow plaid with different shades of orange and yellow, but my grandmother's had a green stripe through it. So that was some serious 70s decor. And as I've been reviewing old episodes of Three's Company, I saw the wallpaper and I was like, what? So I had to dig through my phone and the 45,000 pictures on my phone and find that photo. And I was like, wow. I mean, Grandma was on it, because she installed that wallpaper probably in like 76 or 77. And
you know what I wonder? I wonder if everybody updated in the 70s because was it, and we think it looks wacky and inexpensive and cheap and tacky now, but I wonder if it was truly inexpensive to do in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I remember my mom installing wallpaper herself, like in apartments we had when I was a little kid. And it was a struggle. Like it was really hard to do it herself. But it seemed like everybody had wallpaper. It seemed like painting the walls was not the thing to do. Whereas now a lot of people would rather paint than have wallpaper. So I don't know. Maybe it was just easier to cover flaws in the wall, or maybe like you said, it was cheap. And it seems now, maybe I'm crazy, but it seems now that to get a high-end look, it's really, really out of reach for a lot of like regular folks. But back then, like I look at TV shows and TV sets and stuff, and they looked like my house. Like it wasn't like it was unattainable. So I don't know if that's just decor and fashion taking things to the nth degree, the wealth gap. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think in the 70s, I think there was a lot of catalogs in the and we're broadcasting from the United States, so I don't know about the rest of the world. But in the United States, in the 70s, there were Montgomery Ward catalogs, there were JCPenney catalogs, there were Sears catalogs, and they had these certain companies, featured that were like, hey, I feel like it was the dawn of the whole living room set. Here's the end table in an octagon shape. Here's a big slab of a coffee table.
Yeah.
Here's the new TV in a big old slab of wood. And here's the nice velour gold couch, like the one we had, everyone.
Yeah, we had that too. And a chair, a swivel chair.
We all had this kind of the same look. I feel like everybody had that couch. And if you've seen the meme going around the internet right now, it says everybody's grandma had this couch. And I don't know if you all remember this, but it was kind of a patterned couch with a scene on it, like these big blobs of gold and brown and rust.
Yeah, it was like a cream couch with the brown and rust pattern. Yeah.
So it kind of went around the internet. It's like everyone's grandma had this couch, or you had it, and we all were like, "Yep, there's the couch.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That was like a standard issue Gramma couch, and you had to have the multicolored mismatched Afghan thrown over the back of it.
Oh, you did. And there was
Oh yeah.
also one that had the same kind of print on it, and I think it was some kind of a bird or a turkey in kind of a Thanksgiving-ish little scene in the background.
The
That was
fall
the other one.
design.
One was a home, you know, in this fall leaves and trees,
Yeah, a lot
and
of
the other one was
browns
some
and
kind of a bird.
oranges. Yeah,
And
it was like the fall colors were the brown and orange and the yellow, right? And
well,
then this,
you have to understand that you never say yellow. You say harvest gold. First of all, it was harvest gold or mustard yellow.
which went with the avocado
Yes,
green.
it was like an olive or an avocado green.
Yeah, but what was the brown then?
I think
What
the
did they call the
brown,
brown?
like tortoise or something. I don't know. They had some kind of other name that was like a better name. I think it was tortoise brown, or I just know it was burnt orange and harvest gold. Burnt orange, and then avocado was the green. Brown, because to me, all I think of, you guys, I go straight to the Tupperware colors. It was
Yeah.
those four colors. It was the harvest gold, the brown, the orange, and the avocado. What did you have Tupperware, and what color was it?
Same. Yeah, I think that was really the color palette, right? That was the
Yes.
ultimate 70s color palette. At least we're talking mid to late 70s. No, but early 70s too. Because if you look at the Brady house, for example, that show ran from 69 to 74, I believe, and they had the burnt orange kitchen with like brown paneling and
And there's
stuff.
always a couple canisters
Right, that
out,
were almond. Yeah, that were the
Yeah,
avocado green. Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't have really the opaque Tupperware until the 80s. And that was the orange set that
Oh
we
yeah, we had
had.
the orange set. Yeah, we had the orange
Yeah.
canisters.
Yeah, we had, well, we also had some brown canisters though. So I think we had a bit of a mishmash with the
You had
orange
a
and brown.
mixture.
Yeah, but we
We had
definitely did not have the avocado green Tupperware. And my mom earlier in the 70s, we had that sort of translucent Tupperware, where it was like there was sort of these
Oh
these
yes,
pastel-y jewel
and just the
tony things.
lids. The lids were colored and they were pastel. That's right.
Yeah, but they no, they had like matching ones. Like it was like a clear bluish, sort of sea bluish looking thing. The bowls, the Tupperware bowls that I used to eat the SpaghettiOs out of.
Of course.
But and then the tumblers, of course. They had
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
translucent tumblers. And then McLicken's my cat wants in on this whole
We
conversation.
we had a brown Tupperware pitcher, and it always had like a blob of Minute Maid orange juice concentrate in it
Yeah,
that I would try to stir, and it like would never
yeah.
like be
No,
melted all the way.
there was
It was a big
always the
old blob,
blob, the Minute
like
Maid blob
splashed
that
in my
wouldn't go
eye.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that was the
sometimes it
orange
would
juice
go
container.
floop in your cup, and you'd be like,
Oh,
"Damn,
dang it.
that was like a trick to pour the Minute Maid and
Uh-huh.
and not get the plop in your drink." But yeah, and then dishes. As far as dishes go, my mom was a big fan of the Corelle ware.
Yes, we had that.
Yeah, and it was just plain white. We had plain white dishes, but there
Yes.
was there was a set
Uh-huh.
that she got, and it may have been a wedding gift because this only came out in like special occasions and stuff, and then later actually it got heavy use. It was a dark brown stoneware type thing, and the plate had like a cream colored sort of starburst trim on it. And I still see it now. Like if you watch a Columbo or
Starburst.
something, it's like, oh my God, that's the dishware. And they had like the French onion soup bowls. That's what the bowls were,
Yes.
with the little
Yes.
handle on it. So she had that set too. And I remember a lot of brown carpets, like dark brown carpets.
And wall-to-wall carpets.
Yeah, yeah. Hardwood was not a
Wall
huge
to
thing in the
wall.
70s.
And there was always kind of, and the cool houses like had a dip down, like they had to walk down into
Yeah, the
the
split
living
level.
room.
Right. A little
You had to
conversation
walk down
pit.
into it, and that was like, ooh.
So I like where you were going though with the whole like what was it about those palettes and with the catalogs and everything? Because if you look back to 60s homes,
Yes.
it wasn't really about buying the 5-piece living room set or, I mean,
Well,
you would get
I
like the
have,
couch from Ethan Allen and maybe the accent chair, but then you would get like, you had like an antique coffee table or, something else. It was more, I think people had more hand-me-downs maybe.
I do have a theory, and I think that here's my theory. I think back in the day, a lot of furniture and heirlooms were passed down. It was more of a passing down of furniture. That was just the way people did it. And I think there was such a difference in the new families of the 70s from the mid-century design of their parents.
Yeah.
And I think it was such a split as far as values and the way they wanted to live their life. They went completely away from the whole pastel kitchen and the pink princess phone and all of the turquoise. Actually, there was a little bit of turquoise in the 70s, but they kind of went away from the pastels and went to more of an earthy thing. And I feel like it was just so starkly different. I don't know if there's been another decade that's been so different than the one before. And it was less futuristic. I feel like in the mid-century, 50s, it was like, the space program was big and everything was kind of rounded. Even the cars, the Cadillacs had the kind of the lights that looked like spaceships, and this was just a very different look. And young families starting out were like, you know what, that's my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
I want something totally different. But it concerns me that their version of totally different had to have so many macrame plant holders with spider plants in them. That's the only thing. I'm like, why do they pick all of this?
Macrame was huge.
And rattan and wicker and bamboo.
Yeah, like the natural fibers, which is interesting because the 70s was such an era of like plastic and
it's so strange.
Fake food and stuff. So people brought these rattan wicker, like it was like wicker furniture as living room furniture, like
what
putting the outside furniture inside.
It was the strangest.
Yeah, and
then the wood paneling, which wasn't really wood, it was like some kind of fiber.
Yeah, like the veneer. So the paneling. Okay, now let's break down the paneling because
tell me about the. I don't understand.
I don't get it. Okay, if you go back to the 50s,
okay,
it was definitely a look to have the pine paneling on the walls. Like the stained dark pine paneling with the knots, like that whole knotty pine look, which is beautiful. Pine is just a gorgeous wood, right? So then you kind of you evolve a little bit into that horrible plasticky veneer like the Brady Bunch had in their den. And
it was like hickory veneer or something.
Yeah, like was that supposed to be the fake version of the pine paneling? Or I mean, what was the purpose of that? And the other thing I had a huge issue with was the faux brick wall, where you had the plastic, like, brick stuff, and you could literally see the staples, like stapling this faux brick. My grandma had in the same house with the orange and green plaid wallpaper, she had a faux brick splash guard thing. What do they call it? Backsplash on the over her kitchen sink. And this thing, I mean, it was like you'd walk into the kitchen and you just went, oof, because it was brutal. It was so horrible looking, like these fake bricks and fake mortar and stuff in between. And, but she also had the yellow Harvest Gold countertops for Micah, which were stunning. And her kitchen was paneled with that bullshit. So if you look at it as, as like a 70s, she had it going on, man. Definitely had it going on.
She was modern. Did she have the really heavy drapery in the living room? What was her window?
She loved? She loved sheer curtains with like lacy stuff.
Of course.
So she would layer like the sheer white. It was all white. She would layer the sheer white with some kind of lacy, thing or whatever. And that and her burnt orange wall-to-wall carpeting. which covered like every inch of the entire house. So that was I mean, it was just unbelievable. And she loved her house.
She did.
She
Oh, I like
decorated
that.
the crap out of it every holiday. Like, I don't care if it was like, you know, glass of water day. Like she had all those plastic melted popcorn decorations everywhere, and she
Did
would
she
set
have
the
a hard
table.
candy dish, though? Did she have a hard candy dish with a
Heck
wooden bowl
yeah.
of nuts?
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
She didn't
of
have the
course.
nuts out, but she had like 4 different bowls of candy.
Of
They were
course.
all gross.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a drag to me, because sugarholic. I was like, and I'd be like, Grandma, can't you get a bowl full of chocolate? But they were she was a big fan of the strawberry ones with the mush
Oh, I
inside.
think we talked about this on our candy one. Yes, and they
Yeah,
were
we
kind of
did.
like the no name where you're like, where did these come from exactly?
Yeah, exactly. We suspect they were Hickory Farms, maybe.
Yes,
Right, and then of course the ribbon candy. But
of course.
my grandma, rest her soul, she was such an incredible person, just
Is
a
this Grandma
character.
Helen?
Yes, Grandma Helen.
Oh, Grandma
She
Helen.
she would kind of get a little forgetful about how long certain foods or things
Yeah.
sat out. So there were times where you would visit Grandma in July, and there's the Christmas ribbon candy still sitting there.
Yeah,
Like,
but does it go bad? It's just a blob of,
well, it would
I don't know.
but it would get hot, and it would like stick together. And my mother used to say, "Don't eat it, I'd get worms." Like
Oh, yeah, always.
yeah, because you get worms if anything goes bad, right? But
Of course.
yeah, she had those, and she also had candy dishes of the little. They're shaped like Tootsie Rolls, but they're smaller, just little like striped candies, like rando,
Hmm.
And again, loose in the bowl. And the longer they sat there, the more they solidified and stuck together.
Of course. Well,
Yeah.
that's why my grandmother did the lemon drops because they were coated with that little sugar and then they would not stick together.
Oh,
I
smart.
suspect that was her reasoning.
Smart. And what kind of table was her bowl of lemon drops sitting on?
Well, the coffee table, as I said, was always this gigantic slab that was kind of carved out in the middle for you to put some knickknacks in the bottom.
Oh, interesting. See, my grandma she had these tiered tables that were
Oh,
round. It was like a cake tier type thing,
that's
like a cookie
pretty.
tier, except it was a giant table. And they had like carve outs and stuff, and she would put a couple of different dishes and then a plant, and a lamp.
There's a lot of house plants inside in the 70s, that's certain. And a lot of spice racks in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah. The spice rack. Yeah. I wonder where the spice rack started, because it used to be just a little shelf above the stove,
Yeah,
right?
kind of hidden. And then it was like,
Yeah. And then it became like a fancy rack with all the spices matching.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Now,
maybe that's a McCormick invention or something.
I have a question for you. Thinking of television shows you watched in the 70s, which show, looking back, if you can think of one, had the most 70s of a set, an interior?
Oh, I have to go with two, actually. I think two are tied.
Okay.
One is the Brady Bunch. I mean, that's a given. The interior set of that
Right.
house was so 70s.
And I
And
love that it looked so modern. You look at it now and you're like, oh, I could see how that was cool at one moment because it was so pristine, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, it was kind of a minimalist. They didn't have a lot of junk around, but
Right.
it was a lot of right angles and a lot of kind of sharp stuff, and it didn't look like a comfy house.
It
The
didn't,
Brady house.
although it was very familiar and I felt kind of at home when it was on in the background of my life. I'm like, okay.
Definitely.
But yes, it wasn't. Well, what about that den? I feel like the den could have been comfy, no? Those
Yeah,
two
well, the den
slab things?
it had those like kind of weird sectional
Hmm.
couches, which seemed okay. As
That's
a
where they had to go when they got in trouble and they all had to sit right there when they got yelled at.
yeah, and well, sometimes they got yelled at though in Mike's office, in his
Oh, in the
home
office.
office.
I
Yeah.
liked when they lined them up on those plaid couch things to tell them off,
Oh,
or when they put the payphone in that room, like you guys are
yeah.
on the phone too much. Now there's going to be a payphone.
Yeah, whenever all the kids were in on some shenanigans, yeah, the beatdown took place in the den, which
It's
yeah.
like you guys insulted Alice, and now she's leaving. So get your asses together,
You
or
guys made
whatever.
Alice feel bad
Yeah,
because she thinks you don't need her anymore.
that's right.
Yeah. Well, for some people, I'm going to get back to your question because there is one other show, but for some people, the den was the basement. And they had like the basement couch, which was always grandma's old couch, the cream colored one with all the brown weird designs on it.
Of
Sometimes they were
course.
like colonial designs,
That's what I was saying. Yes,
yeah,
yes,
like the colonial birds and stuff. And
yes.
and then you'd have like some horrible rug or old rug or something, but it was still cold and damp down there. And then the cabinet TV.
Oh,
The
of
the
course.
old cabinet TV that maybe you inherited from the parents when the parents downsized or something like that, but it was always like nowadays people go in their basements and create these unbelievable media rooms with like leather couches and 65-inch TVs, and back then it was like we're going to put the crap TV in the basement, the crap couch, and that watching TV was not like an activity. It was like an afterthought. It was something. Just go downstairs, go in the basement.
I feel like it was kind of like, you know what, we're going to get our TV trays, and it was a big deal. Like Dukes of Hazzard is on.
Oh yeah,
Getting
I
the
think
TV trays, so it was a big
yeah,
deal in my house.
later in the 80s, yeah. But
Okay.
like when I was a kid, everybody's living rooms weren't built around the TV.
Oh, that's true. It
yeah,
was more of a sitting room for guests, and TV was kind of like in the
Yeah,
background.
exactly. Like you would have the formal living room that for
Yes.
some inexplicable reason no one ever went in, no one ever sat in. It was like
Always.
a museum. Like you had
Well, it
a
was
little
supposed to be
museum.
for guests, like back in the day when the Victorian times, somebody came with their little calling card,
The
and then the butler
parlor.
brought it to you, and then you came out in this one little area that didn't have any personal pictures in it, because who knows who's knocking at the door, and then you'd see them in that room, and the rest of your house was private with your family pictures
You
and
would
your
you would
heirloom.
receive your gentleman callers in that room.
Yes, or whatever caller came, and the butler kind of ran it by you. But I think from those days of like, hey, there's a room to let the insurance guy talk to you about the policy in, and it kind of came to a point where they said, wait a second, we don't have that many callers. Let's just
That
keep this
doesn't
room
happen
for the
anymore.
TV.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and today the same thing's happening to the formal dining room. Like seriously, people are like, we just eat in front of the TV, or we have like a table in the kitchen, the eating kitchen, and with the open concept that has now taken over homes, right?
Oh,
There's
yes.
no more formal dining room either, because you don't sit down and have like on TV how they have the dinner with the napkins and the water glasses and the
Oh,
wine.
I do that.
you know.
I do that on holidays. You get the full-on linen napkin. You get the full-on everything. And what bothers me is people, now it's the thing where there's an island and people come and talk to you while you're cooking. I can't do it. I've got to pay attention when I'm cooking. So I wish I had Jack Trippers swinging doors to where I could keep everybody in a certain area and I could be alone in the kitchen, and it wasn't more open, because I need to prepare things behind the scenes. So yeah, I like that old-fashioned dining room thing.
Yeah,
but it's just not today. It's just
tough
not the way
to
things are
find.
today.
It really
Yes.
is. It's tough to find. Like if you talk to people who are looking at homes and stuff, it isn't unheard of to find a home that literally has no dining room. It's just a space maybe in the kitchen or something. And these are standalone houses, not just apartments. It's
And I don't mind it, because you know what? Whatever people, however they gather and whatever makes them comfortable is wonderful. However you want to do it.
Yeah, I think with the open concept, that is a whole. It's a whole result of that, and it's kind of cool because it's the idea that the whole family is going to spend time together. Instead of like dad sitting in the den with his newspaper, and then mom goes upstairs to read her magazines, and
Yes, that's right.
the kids are
Some
sitting at the
Woman's
kitchen
Day
table
and
doing their homework.
McCall's.
Yeah. Right. That was my life. Like everybody was in a different room.
Of course.
But the other show has to be the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
So
Mary
tell me about
Tyler
that.
Moore, well, she lived in a third floor apartment in this big old like Victorian house in Minneapolis. And her apartment set, it had the little step down into, the conversation pit. It was a studio apartment. So
it was in a big Victorian house. They made it into apartment. Like
exactly. Yeah, like they chopped it up. Rhoda lived in the apartment downstairs.
Oh,
and then the first season, Phyllis, who was their landlady, she lived on the first floor. So with her husband, Lance, I think his name was.
Okay.
So if you look at Mary's set, she had a sleeper sofa. So like the sofa would fold out. She had like in the step that went down into the conversation pit where the couch was, it was like a bookshelf. So she had all these books and stuff in there. And then she had over by like a little patio porch window type thing way in the back. She had the little chair with like a round table and a closet. I am looking at it
and I see a wicker gold chair.
Yeah, that was in the back, right?
In the back, and the sleeper sofa I see is a brown velour. Mm-hmm. And there's some shag carpeting, y'all.
Yeah, and her table was like a trunk. Her coffee table was like a trunk or something, which was real big back then too.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
yes.
And her little kitchenette had like the pass through with the sliding shutter thing.
Shutters are so 70s.
It was such a 70s set. Yeah, what about you? What, like, when you watch TV, what show screams 70s set to you?
Well, I haven't watched either of these in a while, but I think of, for some reason, Mork and Mindy. They had some kind of rattan wicker trunk as a coffee table. They had like a orange patterned couch and then like a striped brown and cream chair. And
they had the trunk
paneling.
Too. Yeah, they had the trunk coffee table.
They had a ton of house plants, a ton of spider plants, and they had like these little wicker rattan little bar stools. It was just very, and like this awful carpeting. It probably was cool back then, but yeah, and a couple of colonial lamps. It was just really, really 70s.
Their apartment was very hip back then.
Was it?
Yeah, and that was another like Victorian house type apartment. Because remember, in the beginning, she pulled up in her Jeep, which was, that was the beginning of my Jeep love. But she pulled up in her little Jeep because they lived in Boulder, Colorado. And it was like a Victorian house. So again, cut up into apartments and stuff. But they had an upstairs too. So I don't know if they were supposed to be on, they had to be on the second floor, I guess. And maybe the upstairs was like the attic. But I was watching Mork and Mindy recently on Pluto TV.
But did you, when you were watching, did you notice a ton of puffer vests? Just a ton of rainbow puffer vests. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Mork had the infamous rainbow puffer, like navy and rainbow jacket.
Yes.
Several things occurred to me.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen Mork and Mindy in, my gosh, decades. Okay. And so first thing that occurred to me was it was a terrible show. Like, I'm sorry. You know what? Pam Dauber is a stunning, talented actress.
Of course.
Robin Williams, I mean, need we say more, right? Comic genius. Even in the later seasons, Jonathan Winters was on there. Everybody on the show was incredibly talented.
So no fault of theirs. They were just hired to.
No, and I don't even think it was a fault of like the writers or the directors. I think it was just sort of a time capsule type thing. Like they were basically feeding the public what the public wanted. But man, the whole
what was the premise of it? So what did the
premise was? It was actually a spinoff of Happy Days.
That's right.
Right, which some people might not remember.
Right.
But so Mork turned up on Happy Days when like his alien pod. This was in the post shark jumping Happy Days. So
oh gosh, no wonder this became a cartoon. Go on.
Yeah, and all it was a vehicle for Robin Williams, because I'm sure someone saw Robin Williams and said, oh my gosh, this man is like, he's insanely talented. He's a once in a lifetime gifted comedian. We have to build something around him, give him a vehicle. So they put him on Happy Days, and then they spun off the Mork and Mindy show. So, and you know what? Truthfully, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up on how, I'm sure our, listeners, you guys wiki it and send us messages, because I don't remember how Mork came to be living with Mindy. Because at first it was just her taking care of this alien, and then later they became a couple, and I don't know, weird things ensued. So, so the premise was always he was Mork from Ork, and look at this kooky alien, and they did things backwards. And
1978 it first aired. I thought it was way before that, but go on.
Yeah, well, and that's another interesting thing is, as sitcoms go, it's really dated. When you watch it, the humor, the rhythm of the jokes, it's very, very dated.
I'm seeing something that kind of ties in, because Happy Days was supposed to be in the late 50s. Mork explains to Richie that he's from the future, which is the 70s.
Yeah, and
he's in the egg-shaped spacecraft.
Yeah, and then
okay.
At the end, now, does it say? Are you looking up there? Does Magic Wikipedia say how Mork came to Mindy's house? Because I couldn't remember that.
Indeed. Okay, guys. Mork arrives on Earth in an egg-shaped spacecraft. He's been assigned to observe human behavior. Okay. He was sent to get off Ork, where humor is not permitted. Okay.
Apparently it wasn't permitted at the show either.
Right. He lands in Boulder, Colorado. He encounters 21-year-old Mindy, our lovely Pam Dauber. She's upset after an argument with her boyfriend. And then she's all upset. She sees him in his weird outfit, and she thinks he's a priest. And he's kind of listening to her, and she, he's really just observing her behavior. But she's like, oh, this guy's listening to me. Then she notices he's wearing this weird suit. And she's like, wait a second, who are you? And then he tells her. And she promises to keep his identity a secret. And then she allows him to move into her attic. So, you know what? That's just so 70s.
Okay, so that was the attic then, the upstairs.
No. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, and he, at the end of every episode, maybe this was my problem with the show, okay?
Okay, tell me.
And I'd love to hear, from you guys who love the show, please let us know what you loved about it. But I was never a huge fan of the finger-wagging sitcoms and the finger-wagging shows where somebody always ate crow, and there was somebody had to learn a lesson, and
that's all the shows, no?
Well, yeah, but some of them handled it better than others. And this show, it was very heavy-handed with its moral compass, and at the end of every episode, Mork would they would have Robin Williams in a whole black set, right? Just him lit, and it was so boxes covered with felt, black velvet or something. But he'd be standing there, and he would talk to Orson. He'd be like, Mork calling Orson, come in, Orson. And then this disembodied voice would be like, Mork, what have you learned from this experience? And then Robin Williams would deliver some fantastic soliloquy. And listen, when I was a kid,
right,
hello, 10, I thought it was hilarious. So watching it as an adult now, I'm like, wow, I guess the show was really geared toward young, I don't know, fourth grade, third grade level things or whatever, and I feel so bad saying this because I know there are so many talented people involved, and who the hell am I, but I'm watching it now, and I'm like, it did not age well. Let's put it that way. It did not age well.
But you know what? The set gave you very 1970s.
Yeah.
It was
oh my God.
Time capsule.
The set, and you know what else? Pam Dauber's fashion, the things they put her in.
Oh, she was so cute.
She was on it. She had the high-waisted jeans, and she was just a stunning, perfect figure, and she had the interesting anti-Farrah 70s hair, where it was
Oh,
just
you're
long and
right.
sleek and straight, and she had the little curved bangs. And then
Well, it
she
flipped
would
under instead of out.
right, and it would she would put it in little skinny half ponytails, like half up, half down. She
Right.
was a big fan of that. Very sporty look.
And she wore a lot of plaid. I feel like she wore a lot of plaid long sleeve shirts tucked into her very tight
Yeah,
jeans,
the whole boulder look. Right.
which was
Yeah.
super, super cute. And don't forget the rainbow suspenders
Oh,
on Mork when he wore a horizontal striped
right.
shirt and
I
then the
know.
rainbow. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like
the
it
khaki
was a thing.
pants and yeah, I mean, hey, you can't deny the talent of the people involved and all that. And it obviously they did something right because people still watch it today. So I don't know. Maybe I just need some kind of attitude adjustment.
No, no. Well, I don't know what you're going to think of this second 70s set that I'm going to mention because I haven't watched this in a while either. And there was a kind of a remake of this
Mm-hmm.
recently that I have not checked out. One Day at a Time. I feel
Mm.
like that was super 70s. They had an orange couch. They had the veneer coffee table. They had the kind of patterned wicker looking walls. Had
Yeah,
a house plants,
you're
you
right.
know.
That set, which was her apartment, right? Ms.
Yes,
Romano. And of course, Schneider was the maintenance
of
man,
course.
the building manager.
Of course.
I think an interesting thing about that set is it seemed to me like with the fashions and the set, they were really trying to make out Ms. Romano
Uh-huh.
as
Yes.
like this modern, smart, sort of working woman who she wasn't concerned with the foof. She wasn't concerned with
Uh-huh.
the foof of fashion. Like she wore no makeup.
It was bare
And
bones.
yeah,
Yes.
and the apartment, I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't like decorated to the nines and it didn't have all these touches and extra whatever. It was just like
But you know what? On the wall, there was many wall hangings of wickery macrame rattan. There was a lot
yeah.
of that on the wall.
Yeah, but they weren't
I will say that.
foofy. Like it wasn't
They were definitely not foofy.
yeah, not a whole. Now with Barbara, right? Valerie Bertinelli, they did dress her in some funky fashions and then Mackenzie Phillips.
Stripes, lots of different shades of stripe. Well, they had a couch, and also a lot of their clothing had the same color. It was a reddish orange. It was kind of what would you call that kind of orange? Like
Burnt
a
sienna.
deep, yes, like a lot of burnt sienna in One Day at a Time.
Yeah,
A
it was
lot
a
of burnt
very
sienna One Day at a Time.
burnt
I
sienna
remember that
show.
crayon. And then they had like the crockery in the kitchen, like the country crock with, the beige with the darker lid, a lot of that stoneware
Yeah.
and kind of the plastic looking backgrounds, like the fake tiles. What is that called when there's tiles? They're supposed to be tiles, but they're fake. They're like a vinyl. Like, everything looked kind of vinyl in that kitchen.
Yeah, like linoleum-y or something.
You know what I mean? And they had their spice rack and they had their olive green teapot. So I
Right.
feel like that was super 70s.
Wasn't that a cozy set though? Whenever I watched that show,
I
I,
don't
I
know.
always I always liked it. I always thought that it looked so cozy for the two girls to be living with mom and it just seemed really safe and cozy to me.
That one, I feel like that one is like you got dumped off at a babysitter and that was their house. I did not feel cozy at that house. I felt like, oh gosh, this handyman keeps popping in. Like, get me the hell out of here. Like, I don't know.
Oh no, I
I
had
felt
the
like
total opposite.
I felt like that kitchen, all they made was like boiled hot dogs in that kitchen. Like I feel like there was no comfort to be had. She couldn't sit down and make you some comfy grandma dinner. She was too busy. She had the Dorothy Hamill hair. I was just
Yeah.
like,
Well, I will
I don't
tell
know
you
about
what,
comfort in that.
that was some crow eating show. I mean, every frickin' episode, Ms. Romano was like, wagging her finger at somebody. And whether it was, Barbara and Julie's shenanigans or, Schneider did something or that David, that long suffering boyfriend that she had.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
This poor guy, he's like, but yeah, that was a very morally superior show.
And that was 1975, so that was smack dab in the middle of the 70s.
Yeah, how long did that run? Like 4 or 5 years, maybe?
You know what? That went from 75 to 84, believe it or not.
Holy cow.
I know, isn't that crazy?
That show went for 9 years?
It sure
OMG. That
know.
is stunning. Now, wait a minute. So, the whole 9 years... Wow, how did they drag that story?
I don't remember the whole,
years?
if they ever moved or like, I should look that up.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. So you know what else we have to talk about? We have to talk about the 70s decor in some of the single camera shows, like Heart to Heart, Columbo, Charlie's Angels.
What do you remember in those shows?
I remember details, opulence. Like the Heart to Heart, their show was always, you know, because obviously they're supposed to be millionaires, right? This is Mr. Hart, he's a millionaire, you know, and this is Mrs. Hart. There's a lady that can take care of herself, you know, Max the butler.
But that was 79, but it still could have been like, you know, they had their same stuff.
Yeah, but they were the quintessential like late 70s. Jet setting couple, you know, because she had the Farrah hair, and
she's gorgeous. What a terrific
Stephanie
lady.
Powers. What a terrific lady.
And wasn't it the Major Domo, Max?
Yeah, that was Max.
Or introduced them.
Max the butler. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And the house that they had was very dark wood, like for 79.
It was in Bel Air. I think they were in Bel Air.
It was very.
It
was very forward for 79. Like they obviously had, the latest and the greatest.
They had a Bentley.
Yeah.
They had a Rolls.
Yeah. And not a finger wagging show. That was just straight up mysteries and stuff. And then there was always the B story with Max. You know, he always had some scheme going on.
Well, it was because it was an Aaron Spelling. I think it was an Aaron Spelling show.
Was it?
I think so.
Weren't they all like every?
Yeah, and he always had shows like that. Like he did a ton of really great, just opulent shows like that.
Yeah, and then in Columbo, which might be one of my favorite shows of all time. And those of course were movies of the week. Like Columbo wasn't on every week. It was like a 2-hour movie, and they came out every few months or whatever. And all of the sets in Columbo, they were a mixture of the sound stages, and then they did a lot of location shoots all around Los Angeles. And then, of course, there were a couple where they went to London, or like he was on a ship one time. But the ones where they're driving around Los Angeles, if you ever lived in LA, like you and I have, and you still do, you recognize everything. It's like, oh my God, there's Tale of the Pup, and there's, and I know that, and you look up stuff. I love
that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And you know what? That spanned all of the 70s. That's like a perfect one because it was, there was a couple of pilot episodes in 68, but it was basically 71 through 78. So it was kind of like all of the 70s if you really want a great backdrop.
Yeah, and you know who directed the very first Columbo of the series? Steven Spielberg.
Well,
yeah, no shit. And it was starring Jack Cassidy.
Oh,
he played a couple. He was in a few Columbos where he played the villain. Of course, Sean Cassidy and David Cassidy's father. Shout out Sean. And it is a fantastic episode. You gotta see it. Like, it's really
just
good.
Just one more thing. Did he always have a just one more thing?
Oh yeah, in every episode. Just one more thing. Because his whole routine was to get the criminal to underestimate him. That was his MO. And then the criminal would be like, "Oh, this dumb guy! Look at this! Look at his crinkled coat and his cigar! What an idiot!" And then Columbo at the end would just be like, "Boom!" And just get him. I love all those. I actually have them all on DVD, the entire series.
I love it. I love it.
Like these giant boxes of CDs.
And I think it was just so well loved because the audience saw the whole crime unfold at the beginning and they know exactly what's going on.
Right, but the
Oh, some
mystery
rich
is,
guy doing it all.
yeah, the mystery is how did Columbo figure it out? So
Yeah.
even though you see the murder ahead of time, the first thing, you don't know how Columbo figured it out. Like, and
You're
then
like,
in the
how did this
end,
happen?
yeah, it's always like, well, but then I saw the matchstick, and it was always some
I
like
love that.
little detail that somebody escaped. But yeah, that's a great one for the 70s sound stages, because there were usually fancy houses. There was usually like some element of, somebody who's fancy. And then the location. You can't beat the 70s decor for the location shoots, because like the gas stations, the street scenes, the cars, it's so cool.
That is so great.
Yeah. So Aim, do you know what? We are out of time. Should we do a part 2 of this?
Sure.
You think? Because like I feel like there's so much more to do. Or should we? Well, maybe we'll do part 2 another time.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's more to talk about, right?
Well, there's always more to talk about in all of our shows.
I know I never talk enough. All right, so more to come, and thank you guys for listening. And always hit us up on Twitter, GlitterBeeGirls, or Instagram, GlitterBeeGirls, and we have a website too, glitterboomgirls.com. We love hearing from you. And like some of these shows come from people's suggestions and stuff. So
Right.
oh yeah, and even if we basically read everything. So yeah, so hit us up, and we want to thank you for once again spending time with us. Don't we love them, Aim?
Oh my gosh, we are so grateful, and it is a privilege.
Amen. Yeah. Okay, so I'm Robbie-Ann McPherson on the East Coast.
And I'm Amy Asbury on the West Coast.
And we are going to sign off. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.